Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of up and down, can you feel it? Up and down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Johansson show. It's Kurt. Today, got a special guest, somebody that had been recommended over and over again on Twitter, despite her not having a Twitter account, so hopefully by the end of this, we can change it. Sixt, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, really excited. Like, from my interview with Aliss Ink, and we speak as well, away from that, she was just saying, you need to get her on the show. I'm like, I've already got lined up. We're speaking on Tuesday. She's like, oh, you can quote her saying that she's an absolute powerhouse and she's a delight to work with. And how does that feel? How does it feel that, especially from fans and wrestlers, everyone's saying you need to get her on?
Wow, it's really like an honor to have people wanting me to come on the show, and also in regards to Aliss, who's someone I've worked with, and she's so good, despite not having that long in the business. It's just it's really an honor, and it's great, and it's I do enjoy when people like working with me. I really do.
And then I imagine with the powerhouse statement after the match, they're wondering why they like to work with you.
Yeah.
Have you got, from like some of my research, am I right in thinking you've got some like martial arts background away from wrestling?
I do, not a whole lot, but I used to do some Krav Maga and some Thai and kickboxing, like way back when.
Yeah.
Not on any level, but yeah, I used to get around a bit. Yeah.
Do you try and incorporate that into your wrestling style at all?
I do try to take the elements that kind of portray it as a real fight. Like, one of my pet peeves is when people don't have like a proper guard. You don't have to have that all the time in the ring, obviously not, but you have to be able to present yourself as a probable fighter. And so I try to bring that with me, like I have a semi-proper stance and have some kind of guard. And I mean, eventually during a match, you will let that go to a certain extent, but I want to have the legitimacy of it with me in wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something I've seen across the board, whether it's Sweden, Denmark, Norway, is one, the storylines, but two, people want to portray it as like a legitimate sport because the public aren't, so they don't have like WWE on TV, and wrestling may not be as big in Scandinavia. So a lot of people might be seeing wrestling for the first time, especially live. So you want it to make it believable, so they're going to keep the retention.
I would say, yes, it's true. We want to keep it believable, but probably not for that reason. I would say that people in Sweden and Scandinavia, especially Sweden, they're a bit cynical. Yeah. So everyone knows that what wrestling is and what it isn't. So you have to work extra hard for them to kind of buy into this, in their mind, silly endeavor. So you have to kind of lay it in a little bit extra to break that, to have that suspension of disbelief from that kind of crowd.
Yeah. So as a nation, if that's like the view on wrestling from a lot of people, how did you get into enjoying wrestling and wanting to do it for a living then?
Oh, wow. Actually, it was a real fluke. I never watched wrestling on TV because we didn't have cable when I grew up. And so I was basically just asked by a friend if I wanted to go to one of these live shows. And I've always been like interested in trying new stuff. So I was like, why not? And I went there, and for some reason I got like front row seat tickets, and it just blew my mind. It was this almost religious kind of experience where I was like, this is the most intense, emotional thing that I've ever been to. It's wonderful. I have to just kind of dive headfirst into this, and I did. So it was really the live experience to me that really got me hooked on wrestling.
Who was it that you went to go see?
It was my home promotion now, GBG Wrestling.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
So
yeah.
how long ago was that?
That must have been, it's almost 6 years ago now. Yeah. And it was a rumble. I think it was one of the first rumbles ever in Sweden. And since I was in a front row seat, sometime during the rumble, this big burly guy, he was sweaty and he was wearing a singlet and he had his lucha mask on. He just fell into my lap and I sat there cradling this big, sweaty, totally unknown to me man. And I was like, this is fantastic. I have to devote my life to this. So that's kind of how it came to be.
What a story. So
Yeah.
how did you get started? Well, it all started when a sweaty, overgrown man fell in my lap and I cradled him.
Yeah. And I sat there and was like, wow, this is it. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
So when you said you threw yourself in head first, was that seeing if there is training to do it yourself, or was it going to more shows, looking online for other wrestling content?
It kind of started with me just wanting to watch all the live wrestling that I could. So me and this friend that brought me, we actually traveled to the different promotions that were active in Sweden at the time and just watched their shows and made a thing out of it. So we went to wrestling maybe once every 2 weeks in some part of Sweden. And that was great. And after a while, I came to the point where it's like, it's not enough. I have to be a part of this wonderful thing. And
Wow.
at that time, there were no active female wrestlers in Sweden. So I could also kind of tell that, okay, there could be a place for me here as a wrestler.
So were you the first?
I wasn't the first, no. And there were a few girls that were kind of semi-active during that time. But after my debut, I was the only female wrestler for maybe a year in Sweden. And it's like wrestling, it doesn't have a long history in Sweden. I think the first show was in 2003 or something like that. And then it started again at 2010. So we don't have a huge roster and we don't have a lot of wrestlers. So obviously we don't have a lot of history either, but there have been some female wrestlers and some pretty good ones actually.
So if you was coming in knowing you'd be the only like current active female, what was going through your mind at that point then? Like, was you worried that you may not be accepted, or how was it all taken upon from like the peers you was training with?
I think everyone was just excited to have a female wrestler, to have the chance to have a female on the roster. And for me, that has never been like it's never been a problem being the only girl. And right after I started training, I was joined by 2 other girls. So there were 3 of us and we came up together through this. But I did like mostly intergender matches at first.
Yeah.
And I love doing intergender, not as a heel, obviously, because it doesn't really work. But I mean, it was never a problem. And I was immediately accepted because, first of all, they wanted a female wrestler. And also they could tell that I had real passion for it, I guess. And I wasn't there just to, I don't know, just to ask some kind of ego boost or just trying to see what it was like. I was really there to kind of become a part of it. And I think that people picked up on that.
Brilliant. So how did you adjust to like the training and things like that? Obviously, having the past in the other sports, you've been used to the physical aspect and of combat, but how did you adapt to training for wrestling?
Anyone who's ever started training wrestling knows that it's probably the worst thing you can put your body through. And at the time, I was actually, like, when I got to the decision that I wanted to start training wrestling, I was actually in pretty bad shape. So I immediately got myself to the gym. I started a diet and everything, just trying to prepare myself. But I'm not going to lie, like the first 3 months of wrestling training was just agony, really. But I just had this idea that I really wanted to do this, so it was all worth it. But it's very straining, but very rewarding as well, obviously.
What was your family's and friends' like reaction to you saying you want to do it?
They were like, I don't think they've ever even entertained the fact that wrestling exists. And for me to just, at the tender age of 30, discover this wonderful thing, they thought I was, well, They thought I was crazy, basically. But it was they still don't understand. I mean, they accept it for sure, but they don't really get it. My friends were always on board with it. They thought it was fun.
Were any of your family come to see you wrestle?
They did. After I bought them tickets myself. She says bitterly. No, but yeah, they did. And I mean, they want to support me. They still don't get it. And that's fine. It's not for everyone. And I've made my peace with that. But at least they did come. So
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
fun.
Who was it that was training you?
Initially, I trained with Harley Rage and Lilo in Hamsa Wrestling, and then I was trained by Steinbolt and Nico Valentine in GBG Wrestling. So those were like my initial trainers. But I've been to seminars with some more famous trainers as well.
Who are they?
The famous ones?
Yeah.
I've been to a seminar with Marty Jones, Chris Silvio, obviously Starbuck from Finland is a great trainer. So I've been to a couple of those seminars as well.
How's the one with Marty Jones? Because obviously for British wrestling, he's one of the legends here.
Yeah. Oh, that was a very intense experience. British wrestling is it's different. Like you work a lot of holds, and we don't do that so much in Swedish wrestling, mostly because the crowd doesn't really get it. So it's kind of wasted on them. So for me, that's a whole new thing, and I wasn't very good at it. But like Marty is he just knows so much, and he had Chris Silvio there, he's in Clearwater, Florida, having seminars as well. Like he's a great trainer, and I just learned so much and met so many great people, like other wrestlers and people like involved in wrestling in different capacities. And but Marty Jones is like, wow, what a mind for wrestling. I just wish I could do more of that kind of wrestling.
Yeah. So what was your first match like then? Who was your debut with? Was it with GBG or somewhere else?
I think actually my first match was in the Norwegian promotion, Norges Wrestlingforbund, against a girl called Kira, who was, she's probably one of the most prolific female wrestlers out of Scandinavia ever.
Is she retired now?
She's retired.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she was a really good wrestler.
I think if I'm right in thinking who it might be, I'm sure I saw her in the UK for WAW.
You might have, and for WAW as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
Yeah, the Knight family.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's been around a bit, and then I did my first match like the week after my first official match, if you want, for GBG Wrestling against Charlie Morgan.
Yeah. Wow.
From the UK, yeah, or Lady Penelope, as she was known by then.
What was that like then? 'Cause I've not seen much of her work as Lady Penelope, but obviously before her injury that forced her away from the ring, Charlie Morgan, especially for like Eve, was one of the like top women over here.
Yeah, she's great. It was a real like such an honor to get to work as someone who was so inexperienced. Like I did my second match with someone so experienced and so great at wrestling. It was really a boon. And she was great working with. She took really good care of me. She made sure that I could kind of do as well as I could under the circumstances. So yeah, it was a delight, really.
Because I know, obviously, you mentioned you enjoy the intergender wrestling, and I know you've faced somebody I interviewed who is probably as passionate about Scandinavian wrestling as I am, for an outsider looking in Luke King Sharp.
Yeah.
How was that?
Working with him?
Yeah.
I love him. Like he's such a great person to begin with, and as a he is a comedy wrestling genius. Like I wish I could have even an ounce of his persona in the ring. It was great. Like I think it's not maybe my style of wrestling, and I don't have that kind of gimmick, but I learned so much working with him, and he also took really good care of me, and he really made it work, even though it was an intergender match. He made my job very easy because he made the crowd hate him so much in a good way. Yeah, it was great. We had a lot of fun. It was probably one of the most fun matches I've ever had.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
How have you adapted to be in front of the crowd?
It's been a journey for sure. Like the whole like persona, like the whole larger than life kind of persona didn't come as naturally to me at first as for some other people. And it's still a work in progress. Definitely, I try to expand on it and kind of iterate it, see what works and what doesn't. But it's something that I continuously work on and try to get myself across even more.
Yeah. So if you're trying to describe like your character and who Sixt is, who are you?
Oh, Sixt. She is the power metal princess of Swedish wrestling, also known as the Scandinavian Shield-maiden. She is big and she is mean, and she hits probably harder than anyone else. She will fuck you up. Sorry, pardon my French.
No, that's fine. I always even if I don't pick up on it, I always put not suitable for 18 because I know full well I'm probably going to drop something in, or one of my guests are going to be dropping something in. I had a guest that loved saying shit and fuck, an international guest, and it was like they're just a couple of the words that you must have learned because he was just dropping it in every question, even when it was something good. And I was just like, yeah, not suitable for kids.
That's probably smart. Yeah.
The Scandinavian Shield-maiden, though, that kind of pops me. I'm a big fan of the Viking culture and stuff like that. I've obviously watched the different TV shows that are on there, and having my ancestors being from Sweden and Denmark, I've always kind of looked into all that. So when you're saying that, I'm just picturing Lagerfeld, 'cause she was a beast.
Yeah.
So
That's
how do you go on? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a bit of what I want. I want this powerful, ruthless female warrior character, and with the added flair of sort of the wrestling part of it as well. So I'm trying to find the balance between badass and the whole the glamour of it.
From away from wrestling, then speaking of Lagerfeld and Vikings and Shield-maiden, how's it seen on your guys' side? Is it something you enjoy watching, films and TV shows like that, or would you say it's more for us outsiders to enjoy?
I do enjoy Vikings. I do. I mean, I love Viking culture and the Scandinavian history in general. As long as you're aware that Vikings is it's like the biker version of actual Vikings. I do enjoy it a lot. I can't stand the fake Scandinavian accent. Because to a Scandinavian ear, they sound a little bit stupid. It's not a very manly accent.
Did you not like Edge's? Have you seen it with Edge on?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of. I actually stopped watching Vikings before he came on, but I've seen a couple of clips. But he did well, I think. Yeah, he looked the part, definitely.
Yeah, he did. I think he did a good job because obviously him being a wrestler, I was like, oh, I like him, and then by the end of it, I didn't like him. So I guess it's just showing that range. Is that something you'd ever get into, acting side of things?
I would love to try my hand at it, definitely. And there hasn't been any it hasn't been on the table as of yet, but definitely I would. Like I said, it's maybe I think it would be good for me as a wrestler as well to kind of delve more into that part of it and expand on my acting abilities.
Yeah, definitely. Do you prefer the storytelling of wrestling then?
I think I prefer the physicality of wrestling, but to me, wrestling is it's a very sort of complete experience, because you have the storytelling, which obviously is very important, but you have the physicality, and you have there's a lot of emotions going on. You have like, obviously some of it is wrestlers are attractive or like very manly or very feminine, and that's also a part of the appeal, I think. But I do enjoy story-based wrestling very much, as long as it has the physicality as well. But I'm also a sucker for comedy wrestling. I think it's I love it so much.
What is it about comedy wrestling that you like?
Because it's so easy. It's not easy, but it's so simple. It's basically slapstick with violence, which is, I mean, it's a primal fun kind of thing. I just love it very much. And I also think if you look at a whole show or a whole card, it's great to have comedy matches, because then you can have hardcore matches or like more hard-hitting matches, and the contrast, it makes both of them better. I think you need all of it to make a good card.
I definitely agree. I remember seeing Sendai Girls came to the UK, and Meiko Satomura, obviously regarded as one of the best wrestlers in the world, and she was facing Toni Storm, but also on that match, I think it was like, I think it might have been like a hardcore. I can't remember the stipulation, but there was Kaylee Ray and I think it was Dash Chisoko, and everybody was ranting and raving about, oh, these are the two matches that are going to kill it. And one of the matches that everybody was talking about afterwards was Session Moth Martina versus Aiga, because Aiga plays, it's like that in the horror movies where you, like the Japanese horror movies, and you've got the girl with the black hair and the white face, like Grudge or The Ring. Yeah. She was like that. And I always remember her just chasing Martina around, and Martina being scared of her. And then all of a sudden, Aiga comes running back out the curtain, running away from Martina because she's got a Hoover, trying to be Ghostbusters.
That's brilliant.
They actually do this. They actually do the spot where she's trying to suck her into the Hoover, and I think Aiga grabs it and like pulls the end off and realizes it's not working, and then Session Moth runs away again. And it's things like that where it broke up the show perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think that card must have been a couple of years ago now. Yeah, I'm still talking about it and still really fond because, again, I think it's got its place in wrestling.
Yeah, it really does. There's a saying, funny is not money, but I don't agree with that. Definitely not. Definitely with live shows, I think comedy wrestling really has a place.
Yeah. So before, like, all the other horsewomen of Swedish or Scandinavian wrestling came around, what were some of your standout matches, would you say, before this new period?
Wow. There has been so many. Obviously it was in that article, but I had a match with the Japanese wrestler Yuu for Bodyslam wrestling. That was a pretty like a high profile match, I would say. But I've faced Heidi Katrina a couple of times. That was really also like, wow, such a learning experience for me. She's so great. So those were maybe the ones that spring to mind.
It's interesting that you say both of those, because Heidi, despite being from England, more or less, lives in Japan. You obviously from Japan. You like that hard-hitting style. So is Japan somewhere you want to be? Is that a goal of yours to go wrestle out there?
I would very much love to go to Japan. Maybe not like as a full-time wrestler forever, but definitely do a session or something there. That would be, wow. That would be great. I think I could learn so much, and I think that I imagine that their style would work well for me and my character.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anybody, like, if you did go out there if it was just like a short tour, is there anybody in particular that you want to wrestle from Japan?
No one in particular. Like, obviously, we spoke of Meiko Satomura before. That would be a tremendous opportunity to wrestle someone like that. But apart from that, I don't have any specific people that I want to work with.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Body Slam.
Yeah.
What do you think to Body Slam's whole, like, their rise has been really quick, and the things they've been doing, I think it helps with the marketing and the
Yeah.
production value of everything.
Oh,
I just
definitely.
think it's one of those where it catches your eye because it's so well done. It's, oh, actually, I want to see this, and everybody talks about how great the crowds are. What's your experiences been like working for Body Slam?
They've been nothing but good, like a very dedicated professional team. Like you said, they really put emphasis on production value and good marketing. And I think it's like some promotions don't appreciate that or don't understand how important that is because what, like you said, I'm just kind of scrolling through Facebook or something like that, like if you have a good poster that was made by someone not in paint, hopefully, it will catch your eye and you will be interested and intrigued. And they've also given me the chance to go up against and like Buddha Queen Amarah was a really nice experience as well. Like
Yeah.
they've given me a lot of chances to meet new opponents and be a part of their product. And their crowd is really good too. It doesn't compare to the home crowd of GBG wrestling because they are like insane.
Describe that crowd for us then, because I'm trying to imagine, is it that adult theme, everybody having a drink and having fun, or
Yeah, like we have a nightclub venue, much like Bodyslam,
yeah,
and we want to keep that. We have kids shows as well, but like the main card is always evening show and alcohol helps. And we have a crowd that's sometimes you have these crowds that they come to wrestling and they're not really there to be entertained. That's at least that's the feeling you get. They're there to, I don't know, maybe heckle you or something, but they're not there. They are they're sitting there being a bit smarky, if you will,
yeah,
about it. But the GBG wrestling crowd, they are not. First of all, they're not a wrestling crowd. They don't really know wrestling. They are there for the spectacle, for the express, like the intent of being entertained. So they love it. They want to love it. So they're
yeah,
very positive about everything. You can fuck things up. They won't berate you for it. If you do something well, they will explode. Like they will, if it's a really good show, I mean, they will blow the roof out of that venue for sure. Just because they want to
yeah.
enjoy it so much.
Oh, brilliant. How do
Yeah.
you adapt between that kind of audience and the more family-friendly audiences then?
Family friendly audience is fine, I think, because you work, especially if you have kids in the crowd, you
Yeah,
work differently. It's a different kind of wrestling and you portray yourself differently. Um, but I've also wrestled in front of a bunch of sober Germans, which was a very also for me sobering experience. Obviously, if you have a great crowd, it creates this momentum. You have this intense energy, and you just feel the connection with the crowd. And if you go to a crowd that's a bit quieter, you get spoiled by that. By the way,
yeah,
you get really spoiled. Like if you go to that show and you think that that is what a wrestling crowd in general is like, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Um, and you get a bit lazy, so it's really important for me to work with more like if you say family friendly or daytime shows or that kind of situation because you have to work so much more.
yeah.
It's obviously it's not as fun wrestling for that kind of crowd, but it really that is when you really have to like work for their affection.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think when it's the more rowdy audience, or they can be very much appreciative, especially more the night goes on because the more shots, more drinks. So they do get really drunk from personal memories. I think it's always dangerous, like progress when they do their weekend shows. I think it must have been about 11:30. The bar had opened whilst everybody was queuing, so I was just like, I might as well just start. And then when it's a long road down there. But I like from like these series of interviews, especially when people have spoken about whether it's CCW or Bodyslam in Denmark or with Stockholm or GBG. Just the atmosphere, and it seems like the atmosphere sound a lot like what the more popular companies here in the UK does. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that is my impression as well.
Yeah. How do you adapt when working for Stockholm then? What's the differences from when, like, if you're working for them?
I would say in general, like Swedish crowd is pretty good, especially considering that they don't really know wrestling. So Stockholm crowd is great too. It's not as great as GBG wrestling, but like that is no one is.
Yeah.
But you work a bit differently. Like I'm a heel in both promotions, so my character is basically the same. Maybe in Stockholm, I would put an emphasis on being from Gothenburg, which is kind of it's a rivalry between the cities. But other than that, it's I don't have to adapt to the crowd that much for the different Swedish promotions.
Yeah. You've been for SWS, and is the one in Halmstad that I'd seen?
Yeah, there's one in Halmstad as well.
See, it was only doing the research for this interview that I came across Halmstad. I genuinely thought it was just SWS, GBG, and Stockholm until yours comes.
There's actually one more as well. It's called Freedom.
That?
Freedom.
Oh yeah, that's one of the new ones with Ender was involved and
yeah,
exactly. So how did it feel knowing that again you're getting called the Four Horsewomen of Scandinavian wrestling, not just Sweden, but you're known as like one of the Four Horsewomen. How does that feel for you?
Well, quite the ego trip, I will say. No, but it's great that I think it's great that me and my fellow Swedish wrestlers have been get so much appreciation from abroad, and that we've kind of been able to make a name for ourselves and put Scandinavian and Swedish wrestling a bit on the map, if you will.
Yeah.
But then again, there was almost only us four when we started, so we've been pretty alone in this. But it's a great name. It's a kind of it's a big shoes.
When wrestling's back to normal and you're all four of you are on the show, if you're not doing the Four Horsewomen sign, I'm going to be massively disappointed there.
We definitely have to do that. Yeah.
Yep, definitely run with it. So speaking of them, like how, like from each one of them, what do you like working with them for each one? So like with Aliss to begin with.
Like Aliss is like she could, when it comes to like the technicality, she could out wrestle all of us at once probably, because she has this very proper like martial arts experience, and so she can do so much in the ring that I could never do. So I like working with her because she can do all this fancy stuff and it looks really great, and she has the legitimacy to it that I really like. She's a great person as well. They all are, by the way. So I do like that we kind of we're quite different. We all have our strengths, and we're quite different. So I think that it creates a good dynamic in between the four of us. Yeah. And then you have Aya Frick, the sadistic succubus. She's my tag team partner, but I used to work a lot of matches against her when I was a face. She has the theatrics, like she's a trained actress.
Yeah.
So she has that down to a T. She does so much like with that that I could really draw from. And our dynamic as a tag team is pretty good because she can do all like the theatrics of it, and I can do maybe more of the just the brawling.
Yeah.
And it really it creates a nice dynamic. And then you have Betty Rose, who's like this charisma explosion. She has this a very, very natural and great charisma that's so hard to imitate. That's why I never liked working face, because it's not, I don't have that, and it's really hard to fake it. So she has some gymnastics background, so she can do a bit like her finisher is like a Betty Buster, like a Bronco Buster, like a blockbuster. So I enjoy working with all these, and I mean, we're all great friends as well, like on a private level. So,
brilliant.
Yeah. So.
I think that's one of the things that I was impressed with. Like you said, all four of you is so different. And I think that's so rare as well, especially when there isn't that many like women wrestlers in Scandinavia to look at and to try and mirror. It hasn't been you've all gone down the same route because that's what it should be. I think all of your characters seems it's a reflection of yourselves, and
Yeah.
I think that's what's made it where all four of you stand out on your own merit.
Yeah, thank you. We've been very fortunate, both that we are very different as people. We have very different backgrounds and very different kind of approaches to wrestling. But we've also been very fortunate in having like Steinbolt as our trainer because he has such a mind for the character part of such a mind for wrestling in general, but the character definitely. So he's helped us kind of develop these characters, like draw on what we have as people and make that bigger and better and just kind of find our way as wrestlers. So that's been great for us.
No, definitely. Have you worked with Steinbolt?
I have. I've worked with him as a tag team partner. I've also done actually intergender matches with, again, at least one intergender match with him.
Do you prefer him as a tag partner or as an opponent?
I think I'd prefer him as an opponent. I mean, obviously, it's like he's 192 centimeter. He weighs like 106 kilos, so but it creates a nice dynamic because he could beat the shit out of me. And did. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it's great. He's really experienced. He's definitely the most experienced wrestler in all Sweden. So, and like I said, he has a great mind for it. So it's a learning experience working with him, definitely.
What's your experiences in Finland been like then? Because again, you've been traveling all over Scandinavia. You don't get that moniker as the Four Horsewomen for nothing, I guess. But how do you feel when you go into Finland?
I love it. Like I worked quite a lot for Starbuck, Michael Maiolatti, and his slam wrestling. He takes so good care of you as a wrestler when you come there, and is always like put a great effort into the card and to the show itself, and it generally like just takes very good care of you. And I've been very fortunate as well to be. He's put me up against, like I said, Heidi Katrina, also Natalia Markova, who's now in the US making a name for herself. So I've been really fortunate in that I've had these people who've kind of believed in me or given me the chance to be better and given these opportunities. And Starbuck is definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely. And you've been, obviously, there's been Estonia and Poland, and I've seen Germany where, was it 2 or 3 matches with Kris Wolf that you had?
I had 3 matches with Kris, for
What was
wXw. That was so great, It was 3 matches during one weekend. And for me, it's rare to get to work with the same person. So like with so many matches during such a short amount of time. But that was great. And I mean, wXw is such a great, super professional promotion. Everyone took their time to kind of feedback and everything. And Kris, it was great working with Kris. She was she's so fun, easygoing. She really does the whole character work really well. She's a good wrestler. Like we had tons of fun. Yeah.
It's a shame, like she's again now retired.
I know.
Like
I was really hoping to bring her to Sweden, but oh well.
Hopefully, try and talk her out of retirement. Just see if she fancies.
Yeah, I think she hurt herself, and so some occasionally like people will retire when they've had too many concussions and stuff, and then it's as much as I'd like to have her back, maybe it's not the best.
Not safe.
No, it's not safe. No.
Is wXw somewhere you're hoping to go back once the world goes back to normality?
Definitely. It's not only because they are like obviously one of the most prolific promotions in Europe, definitely outside of UK as well. but because I had such a great time there, they took really good care of me. I had tons of fun. Got to see lovely parts of Germany as well. So it's just yeah.
You mentioned before we started recording as well, you'd been to the UK. Was you actually wrestling in the UK, or was that just when you was training with Marty?
It was when I was training with Marty, and then we had like a small show in the people who went to the seminar basically had a show. So that's the one time I worked in the UK. But I would love to go back, definitely.
Is there any promotions in particular that you'd want to go work with?
Not really. Like, I'd be open to working with I've heard of you hear the talk about different promotions, but I would like to go there and give anyone who'll have me a chance. Basically, I haven't thought in terms of like I would definitely want to go to this promotion. Like, to me, it's more like I would want to go to the UK and kind of maybe learn more about that British style of wrestling and work with those girls who are they're so good.
Is somebody that does stand out as who you'd be great to work with, and I know she's now doing some training herself, is Aisha Raymond. She's obviously wrestled all over the UK, calling herself Big Femme Vader. I just think it'd be too like battle of the powerhouses. She's been wrestling in Seedling in Japan. She's been at Stardom, and I do a show with her for Fierce Females, who she's working for and training with in Scotland. So I think that'd be a really good dynamic. Like, if you do come to the UK, I'm going to start tweeting and saying that's the collision that needs to happen of yourself and Aisha, because I think it would be a good complementing of styles. I think if it's that hard hitting style that you like, I think yourself and Aisha would be a great fit.
Oh, I think so too. From what I've seen of her work, definitely.
So, what are your goals left in wrestling then? Like, what are you hoping to achieve when it's all said and done?
That is actually a really good question, because like I came into wrestling not knowing anything about wrestling, so I couldn't. In the beginning, it was all about just actually getting into the ring and being a part of Swedish wrestling. And for me as a worker, like I would love to go to Japan. I would love to go to the UK and maybe do like a kind of tour there. I don't have a specific end goal in mind. I would just like to do like more of it and go to new promotions and see new crowds and just better my craft, if you will. But if you look at wrestling as a whole, like I would very much love to be a part of making wrestling more accepted in Scandinavia and Sweden specifically, where I would love to see wrestling on Swedish television, for instance, just make more of Swedish wrestling. That would be probably my goal once I retire from the active wrestling myself.
Oh, wow. Like, I find it so fascinating, like, especially with like yourself, where you've not grown up watching like WWE, so that hasn't been like the be all end all. Like, I know people personally were their journey to try and get into WWE just consumed them to where they wasn't enjoying what they was doing, because they was always fixated on that end goal. Whereas, like yourself and a lot of people from Scandinavia, that isn't the case. Where it's like, well, to be honest, I'd prefer to just build wrestling here rather than go there. Or it's great to see, because it just shows that you just enjoying being in the ring and being able to wrestle wherever I'll have you, rather than saying, right, this is a goal, this is a goal, this is a goal, and being down that you're not achieving them as quick as you thought you would.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If I could be the first Scandinavian or Swedish woman in WWE, I mean, that would be. I don't even dare dream about it. It would be great, but it hasn't. Like you said, I haven't grown up with that, so it hasn't really been what I've been looking for. It was more about the local wrestling here and just trying to improve it and make it more accessible.
Yeah. Do you think if you did get signed by NXT UK then, and was that first, not only female, but first Scandinavian wrestler, do you think that would help your ultimate goal of building the wrestling scene in Sweden and making it more acceptable?
I think so. I think it would mostly maybe we have a lot of wrestling fans in Sweden that love the WWE but don't go watch Swedish wrestling. So I think the greatest draw would be for them, for those people. The Swedish general don't know that much about WWE, so it's hard to say what the impact on those people would be. But I mean, it's always easier to get traction for a product like WWE if you have a Swedish name in it.
Yeah.
So it would be, and we have a couple of newspapers that occasionally write about WWE and that kind of thing. So it would definitely get some kind of traction.
Yeah, I'd like to think if somebody did get signed, then your media would start giving you all the attention in the interviews, because although it's not something they always write about, it's still somebody getting signed to one of the biggest global companies in the world, regardless of what sport that is. And I'd like to think, because we've seen it in the UK, and even with wXw, we've been seeing certain people that have been signed from the independent promotions have now been having the best ofs aired on the WWE network, or I know ICW are producing content that's going directly to the network now, and that's where you get to see it. So I think if it was a case of like Sixt is coming to NXT UK and they start doing that fan footage of like GBG, surely that's only going to be a good thing for the scene.
Oh yeah, definitely would.
Now, hopefully it won't be like too much longer. I know for a fact like this pandemic's ruined a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. I know because they were planning on running a lot more regular than what they had been doing, because a lot of it's block tapings where they'll do a weekend and it'll be 2 shows over a weekend, and they'll try and get, say, 6 weeks worth of content out of those 2 shows. But they'd been looking at different venues on a more regular basis to do more of a, so it might be, right, we'll get 2 shows out of this venue, or maybe 3 maximum. So hopefully once they're doing more of that repetition, like we've been seeing them looking further afield to Germany and France and Spain. So hopefully it won't be too long, whether it's yourself or somebody else from Scandinavia, for that person to be signed.
That would be great. And even if it's not me, it would be great if just someone, like you said, from Scandinavia or Sweden would be signed. That would be just amazing.
Definitely. So speaking of like GBG content then, for those listening, if they've not seen you wrestle, I know you've mentioned some of your favourite matches with Bodyslam that they can go check out, but for GBG itself, what matches of yours would you want people to like go check this one out?
I'm actually not sure how much of our content is available online. So I could say a match and maybe you can find it on YouTube. Like I'm mostly sure that none of my GBG wrestling matches are actually on YouTube.
Yeah.
At this moment, sadly.
How come is that? Is that something you're hoping will change in the future, for it to be more products for like the internet fans?
Yeah, that would be good, and it would be a great way for me to have some material to kind of market myself as a worker. But I think it's a, you want to put material out there, but you want to have, like, much as Bodyslam, we have a strong emphasis on high production value. So we want to have like a media department that edits these matches so it looks professional, and you don't want like a shaky hand cam, kind of grainy quality matches. But I will definitely work more towards that, to having more of my GBG wrestling matches online.
Yeah. Oh, bro. One thing that has come up in quite a few of these interviews as well is like a Scandigrap super show, or like a tour, whether it's a company in Norway will produce a show, and then a couple of the companies in Sweden will do one, and Denmark over a period of time. Is that something you'd like to see? Like, say if you could all get together to make sure you're going to have that production value so it can be put online for the more hardcore wrestling fans from all over could see. Is that something you'd want to happen, just so it's like, look, this is us, this is what Scandigraps can do?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought in those terms, but yeah, that sounds like a perfect idea. And like you said,
I keep pushing it to everybody, so hopefully I'll push it to
hopefully
enough
someone
people
will
that it'll
listen.
happen.
Yeah, but we should definitely look into that because there is a lot of talent and a lot of heart in Scandinavian wrestling. And I mean, we obviously have we trade wrestlers with each other and the rest of Europe as well. But it would be very nice to kind of market Scandinavian wrestling as the like with the talent that we have.
Yeah.
And I think it stands out compared to other wrestling. I think we could like make a good product that would be inherently Scandinavian, but still really good wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously business can get in the way of a lot of stuff, like from all the stuff I've seen in Denmark, there'd been a rich history of where people haven't got along there. And hopefully, like when I was speaking to Eric Isaacson about it, he was like, I don't know how it'd work in terms of like the business standpoint, because it's a lot of traveling and who gets what. But if it was right, we're going to use these group of people for your show, like you promote it, whatever you draw, you get to keep, and then it would like, right, we can go next place, and then whatever you get from like online revenue, that's where you can divide equally or something like that.
Yeah, you'd have to stipulate the arrangements of this pretty carefully and beforehand. But yeah, the business side is definitely a tricky part. But I think we have the talent for it at least.
Definitely. Who would you want to face on that show?
I would probably want to face Aliss Ink.
Yeah. Why Aliss?
Because we work really well together. We've had a couple of really good matches in Stockholm. I think the dynamic between both the like the character wise and also wrestling style, it just works really well.
Yeah.
I think so. That would probably be my chosen opponent for that kind of bout.
Well, so as like a fan perspective from yourself, then what other, if you could book any other match, not including yourself, but it's just one that you think the fans would like and it's one that you'd like to peek out the curtain to watch, like what match would that be?
Like international wrestlers?
And yeah, anybody really, just for this Scandigrap Super Show.
The Scandigrap Super Show. That is a really good question. I would actually like to see. I mean, they're both Scandinavian wrestlers, but I would like to see a match between Steinbolt and Starbuck. That would be, I think, a good main card material for this Scandigraphs show. But this is just like Scandinavian wrestlers.
Yeah. Why that match?
Because they're the best, to be honest. I think, yeah, I would say they're the short and easy answer. You have, I think they work a match really well together. I haven't seen them work. I think they have before. I haven't seen it, but I have a feeling that they could probably pull off one slobber knocker of a match.
No, definitely. So hopefully, like, I can put the seed into so many different people's ears, like Scandigrap Super Show, and then when wrestling goes back to normal, you can all be like, we should do this, and it can happen. I can fly from the UK and come enjoy it.
Yeah, we should probably get you, like, you can have your own box and everything, watch it, because this is your idea. You're the mastermind behind this. So
now, hopefully it will. Like, that's the whole idea about it. I know for world, like, there's other content creators now looking at doing Scandigraps content and interviews and stuff like that, stemming from me looking into the scene. Which that's all I wanted really, is put more eyes on people from Scandinavia and all these different companies, because I think it does go under the radar, and hopefully companies like GBG can start producing the content and putting it out there, because the way you describe it is probably a lot of British fans what they'd be into. So I think like if we can start getting more of that content online and hopefully keep this positive growth of the Scandinavian wrestling scene happening.
Yeah. Hope so too.
I just need the coronavirus to finish. Well, which
Don't we
everybody
all?
does. Which everybody does.
Yeah.
But no, it is one of the like goals. Once I can fly and I guess have the vaccination, because they're gonna do like a little card saying you can fly if you've got it or something like that.
Right.
I love the vaccine just for that. Just so I can watch some wrestling. He's frozen then a little bit, so
Yeah.
but no, all like again, thank you for coming on. It's been great having you. Like, it's been a long time coming from us making it happen, and it's one where again, everybody that's been enjoying the content have been saying you need to get her on. So hopefully, we've all enjoyed this, and yeah, thank you for coming on the show. Where can people find you on social media? You really need to make a Twitter account.
Yeah, I will definitely make a Twitter account, but they can find me on Facebook as sixt-pro wrestler, or on Instagram, my handle is sixt.wrestling. You can see some pictures from shows and the occasional video clip and just promo pics and the like. So definitely the place to find me. And if you want to, if anyone wants to like send me messages or anything, that would be the way to go about it.
Yeah. Just make sure it's appropriate, like fans. If you're gonna do that, I've seen so many different people where I can't remember if it was from yours, like Low Blow, was it?
Yeah, you saw that. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is as a female wrestler, like I'm a bit jaded. I don't really care too much, but like 90%, maybe 75% of the communications I have with fans is definitely, they do like my wrestling, but maybe for the wrong reason. It's a lot of like, do more low blows, stuff like that.
Yeah, so don't be that kind of twat.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, be the other 25% that can be polite and respectful. But no, hopefully, like again, you can get back to wrestling sooner rather than later, and hopefully during this lockdown, despite not much wrestling, the Scandi scene can keep on growing and hopefully get you over to the UK to do that tour.
Yes, I'd really want that.
Well, Sixt, thank you for coming on the show. Everybody, make sure you
you
do go follow her on social medias. Keep searching Twitter, because I'm going to keep on it. I have to make that Twitter account now. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you hit subscribe. If you've enjoyed this, have a look at the playlist for the other interviews from Scandinavia or anywhere across the world. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Friday morning.